complexity. I want to take a few moments to provide updates on two of our major investigations. Earlier this month, we issued a preliminary report and urgent safety recommendations to the FAA in response to the mid-air collision at DCA. I want to commend Secretary Duffy for his swift acceptance of these recommendations. The Secretary and the Acting Administrator of FAA have been tremendous partners throughout the course of this investigation and in many others, and I want to thank them for their focus on safety. Just last week, as part of our ongoing investigation of the Dolly collision with the Key Bridge, we issued urgent safety recommendations to 30 owners of 68 bridges, which I also can discuss. There is still much work to be done in both of these investigations, and we'll keep this committee updated on our progress. Some investigations understandably get more public attention than others, but all of our investigations are critical for committee of transportation safety. We owe it to the families of those involved, to the communities where accidents occurred, and to the traveling public to find out what happened, why it happened, to prevent it from happening again. In 2024, we issued 132 new safety recommendations across all modes of transportation, nearly 60% of which have already been implemented voluntarily by the recommendation recipients. This success rate demonstrates the value of our safety recommendations and our work with stakeholders to improve safety. And I think this is an important point that I want to emphasize. The NTSB doesn't regulate. We don't want to. The NTSB doesn't have enforcement authority. We don't want it. Why? Because our singular focus is on saving lives. And almost all of our safety recommendations we issue are dependent on voluntary action of the recipients. In other words, it's a true partnership on safety. Chairman Womack, you once said that we punch above our weight. That's true. We run lean with a highly skilled, highly valued workforce, many of whom are here today or watching online. To them I say, I could not be more proud of you. It is an absolute honor, a privilege to serve you and the American people each and every day. I want to thank you for having me, and I look forward to answering your questions. And I'll just note that Vice Chairman Brown is here today as well.
Fantastic. Well, we're delighted you're here and grateful for the leadership that you give this organization and the American people. Having said that, recognizing that they have a lot of other important things that they need to do, the ranking member and myself are going to delay our questions so that we can go straight to the overall chairman of the Appropriations Committee and then the overall ranking member of the Appropriations Committee, get their questions out of the way so they can go about their business and being respectful of their time, and also understanding their questions out of the way so they can. So with that said, I'm going to recognize my good friend again from Oklahoma, Mr. Cole. Understanding
you also know how to get our nose out of your business as fast as you can, too. It's a pleasure to be back here, and couldn't be prouder of this committee on both sides of the aisle, and particularly this chairman, but also your agency. We really do appreciate you being there in really difficult times and helping us understand what happened and making sure it doesn't happen again. Toward that end, and you touched on some of this in your testimony, and I know we don't have a final report yet on the Francis Scott Key Bridge incident, but I think you released recently that there were a couple of electrical outages on the Dolly as it approached the bridge, and I'm curious if you can tell us at this point, number one, how did you detect that? Just out of curiosity for myself, but is this common on vessels like this, or was this a sign perhaps of negligence on the part of the crew?
That's part of our investigation that we are still looking into. There were 2 electrical outages, and then there were electrical outages the day before. We determined those were unrelated and announced that in our preliminary report, as the day before it was due to planned maintenance. And that is not something that they would undertake underway in transit. But the electrical outages themselves we're still looking into. That is part of our investigation. I do want to thank some of our partners at Hyundai for coming to help us. We got down to the subcomponent level, and were on the Dolly for about a month with our team. So that does continue. And then we also have the bridge team focused on the bridge itself and safety.
Is there anything about the bridge you can tell us at this point?
So for the bridge itself, while it passed annual inspections, which really focus on the condition of the bridge, what we did is AASHTO, the State Highway Transportation officials, recommended in 1991 and then again in 2009 that bridge owners conduct a vulnerability assessment of their bridges to determine if there's risk and to evaluate that risk and take action if warranted. That did not occur for the Francis Scott Key Bridge, and so we had asked MDTA if they had done the vulnerability assessment. They had not done it, and we looked for data for that vulnerability assessment. They didn't have the data, so we had to get the data over the course of, it usually takes about a year to do these vulnerability assessments. We did it in 6 months. We got a ton of data and then ran the calculations, and what we found was that the bridge was almost 30 times greater than the risk threshold that AASHTO sets for critical bridges. And the Pier 17, which was struck by the Dolly, was almost 15 times greater. So we recommended, as a result of that 30 bridge owners of 68 bridges conduct a vulnerability assessment to determine risk, and if warranted, take immediate action.